Hello, guys. Welcome. I'm glad to have you guys here. So, tonight we're going to be having a conversation about the spaces and places that are created in gaming communities and how cultural representation and race present themselves in these spaces. So, the baseline for our conversation kind of stems from this article that I've read recently. It's called Black Gamers Resistance. And in this article, I'll give you a quick quotation of what kind of really sums up the portion of this article that got me motivated to have this conversation with you guys. So they said, space and place are not fixed or innate, but rather created and recreated through the actions and meanings of people. And people of minorities self segregate and isolate themselves, as well as disrupt and invade spaces as a way to enact social change and disrupt the norms that were previously in place. With another quote saying that live streaming and other forms of social media have offered new ways for marginalized users to articulate their identities and become visible. By critiquing racist norms and challenging oppressive practices, Black gamers use digital tools to defy the often simplistic and reductionist trends that have historically prevailed in media narratives. So from that, it kind of made me start thinking about the digital tools that might exist in gaming sites, like the ability to report people and kicked out of games and stuff. Can y'all think of digital tools that challenge racist norms or oppressive practices in gaming communities? And do these tools really afford people of color the ability to change that narrative that media talks about or that media speaks to?
Um, I can start. Yeah, it's dependent on starting. We're first looking at the platform that they're playing on, whether it's Xbox, PlayStation, whatever. Um, and that's basically the tools that you get in the game. So Xbox allows you to so the game will allow you to report things to the developer, and the developer can make a decision on that. And then extending from that, then you have Xbox or PlayStation. They have their own individual systems for banning or reporting a player for different reasons. And then so that's what's generally the most players are going to be able to use, because not everyone's going to use Reddit or Discord or Twitter. Um, Twitter, you can't really do anything. Twitter's a madhouse. You can't really do anything on Twitter. Um, it's kind of just like an explosion of opinions.
You can report and block and stuff on
You
Twitter.
can report, but the amount of alt accounts that they create, Twitter does nothing against that. Reddit has its own Reddit and Discord have their own individual communities that are moderated by volunteers, like people who do the work for free. They monitor the servers and monitor the communities, and make sure that there are people not going against their rules, because they set up their own rules for their communities, and most of the time those rules are going to be in the favor of the public, the majority.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got someone in there saying stuff about minorities and stuff, chances are action will be taken against that user. It's entirely dependent on the community, because there are some communities out there that I have experienced that don't do that, actually, like the Genshin Impact community, which Winston was talking about before we had technical difficulties, that they are very racial. They are one of the worst, where even the moderation team is not, for the people. It's basically just the same as the community, which is not good, because recently I was listening to a story about how somebody who was very popular in making videos about the game was vocal on their Discord about the game's issues and would end up getting banned just because he voiced a different opinion.
So, in a way, these moderators almost work against.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's entirely dependent. So while these platforms have tools to help others out there feel more welcome. It could also be against, where they can entirely decline and reject those of other opinions as well. So while there's more tools at the same time, it could also be a detriment.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's ways that these tools can be changed or be utilized by people of color to like change this narrative that they can just be manipulated by whoever has the power of them to control the narrative in a way?
I think that kind of goes into creating safe spaces for themselves and utilizing the tools that are available to them to create safe spaces, create their own rules, etc.
Yeah. So while like a general subreddit might be generally negative towards minorities or people of color, there are people out there who have the entire right to create their own sub community that's about the same game and allows more positive conversation, allows for more accepting, and have different rules that are going to be more focused, that allow more people in and minorities and stuff. It could be run by, and like they just go by a completely different rule, but not every gaming community is going to have that. But that is a tool that they're allowed to do, is create their own community and build it.
Yeah, and that makes me think of the quotation from this article we started to talk about earlier before we hit technical difficulties, that like the spaces and places that they're created and recreated through the actions and meanings of people. And just the question we were talking about before it's wasn't when it wasn't recording, like how are these spaces created for these minorities, and how do they like invade the spaces that aren't deemed for them to enter, and how do they like just go about enacting that social change within these spaces if when these moderators and everything seems to be working against them, and they have to really understand these tools in an in-depth way to work to change that narrative?
Well, the way I see it, right? In order for them to, like, minorities, we can do whatever we can to like change the narrative or change the community into like a more positive light. But the way I see it, it's at the end of the day, it's really up to the company that owns that certain game to set a tone for their game. Like they need to be able to voice to the people that bought their game or the people that are playing their game that, hey, we are not tolerating any forms of harassment. We're not tolerating any forms of racism, any forms of prejudice, none of that. They need to be able to actually let their players know that this is what they're going for. And through that, with the reporting and the banning, that's how real change is going to be made, right? So even if minorities invade like these spaces and are trying to shift the tone themselves of the community into a more positive light, at the end of the day, if their banning and reporting goes to nowhere, if it doesn't mean anything because the companies aren't putting in the action to actually like remove these sort of players, then I don't really see much change towards that community. I don't think there's not much is going to be changed in that community,
I mean, heck, I remember when like Call of Duty added like in their in-game store, they added like pride accessories and stuff like that, skins, name tags, banners, skins that the outcry, from the small portion of the COD community from that. But
right.
like they always say, is that generally the vocal minority tends to be the loudest. So you think that represents the whole when it doesn't, and it's frustrating to see. But it's not to say that the game isn't trying. They included those things. They weren't just outright rejecting. But it's hard for the game itself, for the developers to put in that kind of change. But I think it's much more manageable when it comes to a platform used to present the game, like Twitch, for example, the live streaming service primarily for games, but I think it's extended beyond that now, unfortunately. But they recently, I think, took a stand against, with enough public outcry, a stand against streamers who streamed gambling games, that they didn't want to encourage their community to encourage gambling, the act of gambling.
Right.
So people who used to stream and make hundreds of thousands of dollars just from streaming these gambling games, now, nope, and that's it. And it just completely automatically cut out their way to make revenue because it was a negative impact on the community. And I think that same idea can be applied to minorities in these spaces. That if somebody on Twitch is being outright racist, awful person, that with enough public outcry, that company will have to listen and be like, that person no longer has a voice here on this platform. He will have to go somewhere else. And that you can only hope then that other platforms follow suit and make sure this person does not have a voice anywhere.
Yeah, that makes me think. Like when companies take the public outcry, like with the Black Lives Matter movement and with the LGBTQ inclusion outcry for that, when they put out like hashtags and they put in these little things into their games, is it just to appease that outcry and it's just to keep the favor of those minority groups, or do they actually have good meaning and intentions behind it? Because if they are seeming in support of it, but the facets and digital tools that are part of their game aren't changing with that narrative that they're supporting, are they really making those changes and are they really trying? Because you also don't know who's in the room where this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
If it's diverse or if it's just a bunch of old white men sitting in a room around a table.
I can think of a couple of examples. What's you want to go first?
Yeah. I'd say it is a pretty mixed bag concerning which games, because it is heavily game and also like developer dependent. Because I know there's like some things with the ground up. There's certain maybe things with that in mind with the ground up, sort of like maybe Overwatch. Of like there's like a heavily themed like LGBTQ representation and also many minority representation. I mean, in some aspects, it's a sort of detriment, but that's like other problems with the game itself. But that still has.
To kind of go off of what you were saying, I was thinking about those hashtags that came out during the like Black Lives Matter movement. About do you remember the Blackout Monday podcast or hashtag that would be filled up with like literally black screenshots, and it would push down all the information that you can get like about important things like that, but it was being pushed down by all the white people just posting black screens. I think kind of it's like they can create those like hashtags and they can create that energy, but it's like, is it going to be kind of bombarded with miscellaneous information that has nothing to do, or not even information, but just miscellaneous things that kind of cover up the progressive means that they mean, you know?
I actually want to bounce off of what Winston started on, where involving game companies. So Winston mentioned Overwatch, which is a great game that every character that gets added is someone of a different ethnicity, might not have a gender, the whole board. Like if you look at the entire roster, it is so like diverse. But then you look at its developer, which is Blizzard, which over the past couple years has had this massive, I forget what the term is, this massive thing against them, because it came out that even though while they were doing all this stuff that seems so positive, so progressive, that they in fact had sexual harassment allegations in the workplace. Regarding think it was with women employees, right?
Yeah.
And then same thing with Activision, who makes Call of Duty, where it's like even though they might put out these pride things, Black Lives Matter, accessories, information does come out that it's entirely false. That what they would like. Granted, they may not represent the whole company, but to allow people like that in their company to work for them kind of puts a stain on the reputation that they're trying to build up. And then there are, but not all of them are bad like that. But that's definitely a standout example. Like the game that I play very often, Destiny, made by Bungie, they're very pro, Pride, Black Lives Matter. They constantly do charities. They constantly do donation things. Integrate those systems into their game to support these movements. Where it's like if you make this purchase of this accessory that they offer with real money, that money is going entirely towards some good cause.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which I think is a good way to just like instead of just putting out this character out there or putting out this thing out there where you just spend the money and that money is entirely going to them, and then information comes in like, well, shoot, that money is all just like, going straight towards this negative thing that I've been supporting for years. But then at least if like let's say something bad comes out about Bungie, at least you know that money that you put towards was going to something good. Where it can help do that, enforce that change, bring about that change that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So it's like the companies working with their audience that they're speaking to do this change. They're actually taking what they're hearing and taking like they actually have meaning behind what they're saying rather than the companies who are just like, yeah, we support this and then do
they were showing
nothing
rather than just telling.
Yeah.
And
actions speak louder than words all the time.
Exactly. That's like, hey, we had a couple of bad apples, but that does not represent the entirety of our organization.
Mm-hmm.
That could also encourage more revenue, can encourage more people who might not be playing that game to then pick up that game because they know that the money that they're spending would then be used towards charities that they support as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like once I heard about the Activision, Blizzard, Office, harassment stories and all of that, I was like, I really don't even feel like playing this game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just like, it's a mess. This is a mess. The whole thing's a disaster. I'd rather just wipe my hands clean and not even take part in it.
Yeah.
I'd rather just spend my time playing something elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Activision Blizzard's on track, but that was definitely a big stain on their reputation when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because people spoke so fondly of them that once that information came out, you were like, well, is everything they're saying just a front? It just makes you feel real unsure whether or not you want to give these people your money.
Yeah. Do you think that there's these companies in gaming spaces that they create change as more people of color start to become a part of the production and content creation surrounding those games?
The way I see it,
mm-hmm.
the more diverse a gaming community is, the more likely it's just going to have a positive environment. Because when everyone is a part of something, it's a lot easier to understand where people are coming from, not to be so harsh, and there's a high chance you're not going to harass people because everyone's from a different background,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like with a lot of gaming communities, what it comes down to is what was that one movie, that one old football movie, We Are the Titans? Right? Is that what it was called?
Yes. Yep.
Where it was it took place in the 70s or 80s, and they were trying to integrate black players into the all-white football team.
Mm-hmm.
But in the film, what they were able to do was that they were able to put aside their differences for their common goal, which was football that they all enjoyed. And I feel like that could also be said for gaming, where you can be able to set aside your differences when engaging in these communities and engaging in this activity. To even if you were one way before, if you were racial before, that could very well change in the community that you're playing, in the game that you're playing, in the people that you interact with. that can change your entire mindset.
Mm.
Because games are truly open to everyone. Anyone could hop in. Anyone could go to the store, buy a console, buy a game, and hop in and choose.
Not to mention when you're younger, that's kind of when you tend to start getting into this stuff, when you're in a more impressionable age. So when you're around those kind of people spewing those ideas, you might it might not be something that you follow in your everyday life. In that community, you do kind of partake in something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you have these very impressionable children hopping into these gaming communities and being a part of it, and you know, I know even like my little cousins, like they've watched like their favorite streamers on Twitch or YouTube or whatever play these games that they might not even play themselves, but they just enjoy watching somebody else play. How do you think Black streamers getting into those spaces and being agents of change for social change and having their presence just in this space where their marginalized bodies kind of disrupt this norm of like this space that was designed for more privileged bodies, quote unquote, as the article likes to call them? Like, is this disruption of this like social normed space good? I mean, obviously it's good, but like if these kids are experiencing this and that's what they're like starting to be a part of, like it seems like something that's definitely important, but oftentimes the more popular people and the people who are out at the front of it aren't the like people of color that are a part of that are streamers. They're usually on the back burner. They're usually in their own isolated spaces where they can exist in, like you were saying earlier, Caitlin, like a safe space. So like how do you get these people to be towards the foreground? How do you push to have this be what kids are seeing and interacting with when they first start getting into gaming and first start seeing the live streams and even just like getting into talking in gaming communities?
I think YouTube does a pretty good. I'm not familiar with what Twitch does, but I know YouTube. There are definitely like Minecraft streamers back in the day that like YouTube has a whole separate section for videos like for kids. Like these content creators only create stuff. The content is geared towards children. So there's some things that are like allowed and things that aren't allowed that they have to put out this family friendly. They have to curate their content that they create to be more family friendly, and that's probably going to attract some kids. Or nowadays, as we're getting older, more parents are more like they're more hip to it, and they'll put their kids on that. So YouTube finds a way to encourage. So like if somebody wants to make content creation for like a new game and wants to curate that towards kids, they'll curate their content, go by YouTube's guidelines of what makes it attractable for kids. Like they have a thing on there, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like this is for kids type deal, kid friendly.
Yeah, but
there
I've also
won't be
seen
any cursed words. They won't have any of these egregious opinions. Where it's meant for kids to watch and to attract kids to watch.
I have seen recently there's been articles or like more of like a kind of a moral panic starting about people being in those spaces and putting out content in those spaces that appears to be kid friendly, but in its actuality it has like innuendos and like harmful like things that in a sense are geared towards in like tainting quote unquote children's minds to like think a certain way or something. Like I know one thing was that there were videos of like Disney characters, but they were in like promiscuous positions doing certain things that are not appropriate for children.
Or the SEX that appeared in the sky over Lion King.
Yeah, it's like stuff like that can still weasel its way into those spaces. So it's like, how do you really like? You can try your best to moderate it, but how do you really?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, Manny, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to circle back to what I said earlier. It's really up to the company, like Google, YouTube. it's they can, if they really wanted to, create a system to actually moderate their creators and make sure content like that doesn't get passed. But they don't. They don't put in that effort. I'd say like the little things they do, like with the Pride Month and then like the Black History stuff. I like that. I like those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, they don't put in like all that stuff. Always seems performative to me, you know, because they don't really put in the effort to actually like make a change on their platform. Because it's not only just YouTube Kids, which gets invaded by that kind of stuff. It's just the YouTube itself. I'm speaking from a personal standpoint. From back when I was watching it, ever since like middle school all the way up to high school, YouTube literally introduced me into the right wing pipeline, where I would see one video that would have this sort of like it's leaning towards something like that's like a conservative or Republican sort of standpoint, and I would watch that, and then you to recommend me something else, and then like you're already down the pipeline. And YouTube, this is something that's been going on for a very long time. I want to say almost like a decade, and YouTube has done absolutely nothing to actually like change the situation. I dare you. You can go on YouTube Shorts, because I do this often. You click on a YouTube little short, their version of TikTok. I think they call it YouTube Shorts. Click on a cat video where they're just doing something dumb. 10 videos later, they're showing you Ben Shapiro, which has nothing to do with what you first started doing on YouTube Shorts. Because that's just how their system works. It's introducing you to these things that they're not moderating properly, and it's just indoctrinating these people that watch their videos into like it's I don't even know how to explain it correctly, but you know, it's
predatory.
No.
Yeah, it's very predatory.
Yeah.
To kind of go off that, TikTok is really guilty of that as well. Like the algorithm, like you watch like one thing and then you keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it's like a never ending, and it kind of it brings like more of those videos in, like that just that could be really toxic, and then TikTok will try to like combat the amount of like bad things that you see, or like the amount of like nudity that you see or something like that, but they can't take away everything, because it's like it starts going in on like freedom of speech and stuff. So it's like kids can fall into these like these kind of just long dark holes of like message after message after message.
Exactly.
And even in those media,
for more than 4 seconds, and now my page is filled with it.
Yeah, and even in those media outlets, like
times in order to get it off of your For You page. Like I have fallen into like, do you remember that blonde lady who used to be like she used to be like a Republican news reporter, and she would pop up on my TikTok, and like I wouldn't like videos or any of that. I would like watch one video of hers, and then I would only get that. I would have to not interest 6 times in order to get it off. But watching one video will put those videos on your For You page. It's insane.
Yeah, that is wild. And the thing is, there are creators on these platforms like TikTok and YouTube that are actually going out of their way to put out a positive message, and then TikTok and YouTube will go out of their way to silence them, suppress their videos, so you don't even see them. You could be subscribed to them, and you won't even see their videos. Or if you follow them on TikTok, you won't see their videos on your For You page. Like, I know TikTok has a following page you can go to, but majority of people that will use TikTok just go on the For You page. And TikTok will go out of their way to suppress positive messages such like that, and they'll just show you all these, like it's like they're trying to send you a message like, you need to be watching this person. Why do I need to be watching this blonde lady, this Republican blonde lady? Why are you telling me this? I'm a black guy. I watch certain videos, and that lady should not be there, but apparently she is. So why is that? Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, it brings us back to like the digital tools that exist, and they just like are counteracting. Seems like they're working so hard against like the positive social change that's trying to happen, that's trying to break through, but it just can't.
I feel like this all really comes down to a monitoring game because think about it. Because if you always have that cycle of this really decisive this and have this discourse, create that discourse for a while, make a giant content farm from that instead, and then that dies down, and you continuously something else comes out that's just as divisive, and it just keeps going over and over again. And it's like easy to make that the farm all of that for like views and content, like monetary stuff like that. But if it's always just positive stuff at that point, then I guess that sort of cycle becomes really unsustainable.
Yeah, it's like the positive stuff doesn't draw in as many people. It doesn't create as much discourse and as much conversation as the negative and polarizing topics do. So that's what's stuck out there because of its monetary value and how it can just be. It's a money grab at the end of the day.
Yeah, not to mention that these platforms tend to, A, these platforms aren't being monitored as much as they should. B, they're all run by this code algorithm that, like, it's not like they're looking over that or anything. It's just what they have, and then that just runs its course, and it's not a very good one. And on top of that, they allow these, TikTok users, YouTubers to get paid just by watching their video. So then you're starting to get recommended these people that you don't want to see, and you're giving them money, even though you don't want to see them. Then giving them a bigger platform to talk because they keep getting paid and they keep becoming more popular on the platform.
To kind of go off of that also, I feel like maybe that algorithm is trying to keep you in that loop. So like they'll maybe show you more videos that you may not agree with or even agree with just to kind of keep you scrolling so that you do keep watching those videos and they can stick those ads in and they can keep sponsoring content. So like basically everything is just trying to keep you in that hole.
And a lot of times what it can come down to is like, why is this person showing up more on my page? Why is this politician showing up more on my page? And a lot of times what that can come down to is sponsoring.
Yeah.
That these people have a stake in the company, that they have an agreement that their content shows up this percentage more than the rest of the people's content.
And it all brings it back to like, who's in that room, who's creating this stuff, who's actually in charge of production and in charge of creating these algorithms and, choosing what does and doesn't matter.
Yeah, like I'll be on TikTok and I'll watch a certain TikTok in the morning, and then without fail, this happens about 3 times a week, I'll get sent that same TikTok by my friend later in the day. The exact same one that I saw that day.
Yeah. Well, to bring this back to the conversation of gaming, since we've kind of strayed a little bit away, but also staying very on topic, I just really wanted to point out something that I thought was interesting when I read the article was that they posed a question at one point where they asked, what does it mean to be a true gamer? And that got me thinking of what does that mean? Like, are there certain qualifications that someone has to have to fit in the title of a true gamer? Like, is this just a title that's used to exclude people who aren't deemed worthy of being true gamers? Is it just something that's used to like push minorities out of the spotlight and keep this space like that people consider to be special for them or whatever? Like, what makes somebody a true gamer? Is that even like a thing that exists? What do y'all think about that?
I feel like that term's sort of been hijacked in sort of to make this as a form of entitlement. Like, for example, I play a lot of Dark Souls games. And for some people, like, they don't say you're not like a true Dark Souls fan unless like you do like a level 1 run with like just a club and like a loincloth or whatever. Or if you just use magic, then like they would just like bash you like within the community itself because like you say that you're playing it the right way or something like that. You're trying to get the right true way of completing it. And like sort of things like that. Yeah, it just uses a way to just gatekeep and just makes those spaces a lot more less inclusive. Like regardless of any like race brought into it or whatever. It's just like that sort of entitlement in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an isolating term in its own right. And it can be applied anywhere because people call things like, oh, this person's a true athlete. And like, let's say you also play that same sport. And you're like, okay, if he's a true athlete, then what am I? You know, and it's just like an isolating thing that can discourage people who do enjoy that activity. If this person's a true gamer, then what am I? You know?
Right.
And even when it comes to gaming, since gaming spans such a wide net and a wide variety of different genres, it's hard to even pinpoint what one would consider to be, a true gamer. Because there is no such thing as there is no person out there that is a master at all forms of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's not even race related. I think it's really just an isolation term that it's just going to isolate anyone, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah. I also think if you're saying like true gamer, you would have to start sticking true reader, true, whatever hobby that they might partake in, which literally just kind of what Winston was saying about gatekeeping. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like someone comes in, it's like, hey guys, I want to try out this new, I want to join the Pokemon community. What can I do to be with you guys? Are you a true gamer to be a part of this community? Do you even know all 17 Pokemon types? Didn't think so. Is your favorite is it in the top 5 Pokemon list Charizard? Oh, it's not? Sorry. You're not a true gamer here. Go somewhere else.
It kind of reminds me.
Actually, there's actually 19, so you're not even a true Pokemon fan yourself.
Alright, okay, buddy. Alright. Elitist Winston back again.
It kind of reminds me of like social media back in the day, like when you were like on like fan sites and stuff, and they would say like you're not a true fan of whatever you're like whatever you like to look into because you like don't know every single thing about them. So I think that can also kind of lead back to the whole true gamer thing. It's like if you don't know like every single little fact or every single little character in this one game, like you wouldn't count as a true fan or a true gamer of that.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine being a Swiftie back in the day, even now, having a negative comment about Swiftie. Just even like a mild criticism. You will be shanked. You might be DDoS. They might find your address. They are that strong.
No, for the most part, for me, like at the baseline, a gamer is just anybody that plays any type of video game. It doesn't matter what kind of video game. 5 years ago, if you asked me, would you be a real gamer if you played on your phone, if you just play phone games? I would say no. 5 years ago. To this day, I assure you, I play way more phone games than I do games on my console. So all this like trying to divide like whether you're a real gamer or not, it doesn't make any sense. Because at the end of the day, they're all video games. Now, if you want to divide like casual gamers, like when I say casual, I just mean someone that plays a video game, not professionally, like you just play it. And then there's the pro gamer who plays it for a living. That's like their career.
Mm-hmm.
I could see where you wanted to make the divide there. But for people that just, if you're not playing it for money, if you're not playing it for a sport, you're just the same as everyone else. It doesn't matter if you're diamond or if you're bronze. You're playing a game that wastes your time. So it doesn't matter. You're both a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't.
At the end of the day, everyone's the same. It's just another way to irrationally divide people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to kind of wrap up our conversation, this article that did kind of fuel this topic throughout came out in 2020, and that's only 3 years ago now, but some of the ideas in here from our conversation seem to be even slightly outdated now, even just having the 3 years passed. So do you guys think that these themes or ideas that we've talked about have like changed in the past 3 years? Like, is the narrative's still the same as it was in 2020 before COVID, before like the huge protests for Black Lives Matter in DC, storming of the Capitol, all of these crazy things that have happened in such a short time period, changing like kind of how we think very drastically. But are these themes still the same? Is there still this exclusion? Is there still this inability for people to push through even though they're trying?
Like in games or in general?
In games. Because you have these
feel like-
overarching themes that happened in general society, in general social changes happening, but it also affects everything else. It trickles down through the systems, and so all these bigger things
Definitely.
affect.
Definitely. When a new movement is started, regardless of what the movement is about, you're gonna have people for it and you're gonna have people against it. So for like, let's say, I don't know, 5 years at least, you're gonna have the conversation be brought up if you're trying to meet somebody or if you're just talking generally in a game on a team, where someone's like, "Hey man, what's that clear tag of yours that says BLM?" I was like, "Oh, it's Black Lives Matter, you know? I support it." And it was like, "Team, let's kick this guy out of our game. Everyone vote." Like that, like it's gonna be a thing that goes on. Every new movement is gonna have its opposing sides, and that's gonna stem into games as well, where it's just another obstacle for people to overcome. Where something like that can definitely die down over time, but but something politically like that in a movement like that could definitely stem. That would be even further up than what any game developer can do, where that would just end up being a thing politically that something would have to change.
I also think that maybe some of the themes that we've talked about have changed from in the last 3 years just because we have all the tools to keep everything moving faster. So, like, I mean, everything we're going to feel is going to be moving faster. Like, you know, everyone says, like, society's moving faster, fashion's moving faster, etc. Like, different ideas are being circulated faster. So I think that like compared to like 10 years ago, like our mindsets are going to be changing faster because we have so many different things that are being put out at the same time that could change it.
I know recently there's been a lot of newer games are coming out with more diverse characters, more diverse storylines, and all of that, as opposed to what was coming out 3 years ago even. And I don't know, it seems like this larger social change that's happening is greatly affecting the gaming communities and altering them in a way for hopefully overall the better. But even then, there's always, like you were saying, there's always going to be that pushback. There's always going to be the opposing side. So is there ever really a way to truly overcome this continuing narrative?
Even in like the new Harry Potter game that came out, much to opposition of what J.K. Rowling stands for, in the game you create your character, and you don't choose like, you know, he, she. They give you the option wizard and witch, to not even tie you down to a like, you know, like a he, she pronoun if you don't feel comfortable with those, you know. But people will tie themselves to those titles, you know, because that's the lore, that's what the game is about. But
Right.
So like you can tie yourself down if you want to, but you aren't forced to. You can choose like whatever you want.
yeah, and the game allows you to, you know, you could look like a male, but you can give yourself a feminine voice. They give you those options, which is nice. So there are I haven't seen, there's ways that developers can accomplish these changes without getting a lot of pushback, like with the Harry Potter game. You know, I haven't seen anyone talk about that kind of thing, but I'll see people, you know, complain when a new Overwatch character is added and the developers will announce, yeah, this person is trans or this person doesn't have a gender. Then there will be pushback on Twitter, people being mad, people being like, oh, I'm not going to play this character. I don't play gay. Stuff like that. So there's ways that they do it tastefully. And there's ways that they can't. That change is going to be still happening for years to come.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what you said, I feel as if, in my opinion, whether they do it tastefully or whether they just do it performatively, right? I feel as if just adding diverse characters is already shifting towards a positive community. And this is not just I'm not even just gonna tie it down to video game. I'm also including like movies and TV shows. Stuff like The Little Mermaid, where they made like Ariel black, right? Like in my heart I know Disney does not really care about diversity. Like, I think we all would agree with that, right? Like, they just want your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing it
like,
because it's
these
what's
companies,
popular.
No, exactly. Like, yeah, these companies are just doing these things. I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of these companies are only making these decisions to just get your money. Like, the diversity, the inclusion of the LGBTQ in their characters. They do this to get your money. But that's still, even at itself, that's still a positive thing, because someone's gonna look at that character and they've never played this game before, or they've never seen Little Mermaid. They're looking at Ariel like, hold on, wait, she's black. Wait, I'm black. Wait, you tell me mermaids can be black too? So at its base, it's still a positive thing, whether they're doing it just to get your money or not. And I still, like, since like 3 years ago, I do think that's like we've seen like a certain positive change, and not even just like the companies adding diverse characters, it's also the people themselves, right? Because in 2020, me personally, I've never seen so many people create these spaces that was meant for like a safe space for like black people or people of LGBTQ. I've never seen so many people go out and like announce like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna stream this. Come and join me, and we can have a fun time together. And you don't have to worry about being harassed based off the skin of your color, or who you're attracted with, or what you identify as. We've seen this change go on. We still have more progress to do, but it's happening.
Yeah, and it's
the change
the creation
from 2010 to 2020 is huge.
Yeah,
the advancement that were made.
Yeah, and it's
insane
the continuing
creation,
creation of like the spaces and places for people to feel comfortable, for them to have this like this starting off this space that makes you feel comfortable just engaging in the material itself. I feel like that's eventually going to lead to people feeling more comfortable getting into the other spaces that they're deemed unworthy of entering. And when that happens, it's going to completely change the narrative and the norm of everything that has been going on for so long. And that change, when it eventually, I can see it happening, is going to, like, I can't wait to see what gaming is going to look like as that happens. Well, that kind of brought our conversation full circle there at the end. Just natural. And thus so our podcast has reached its natural conclusion. But yeah, thank you guys so much for engaging in this conversation with me. I enjoyed it. I think we all got a little bit out of it, or at least I hope y'all did.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.